Welcome to BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we'll be looking at about this team on our August 19th preseason football preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we are speaking about the Cross Plains Buffaloes.
Yeah, and this is a Cross Plains team that on paper is a little bit intriguing. They went 4-7 last year in Coach Jared Sanderson's first year, taking over for Coach Daniel Purvis, who'd been there for a long time. But they've got a good group back. 12 Lettermen of their 19 last year return, including 6 offensive and 7 defensive starters. And perhaps the most impressive or kind of I guess eye-catching fact is the fact that they got returners from an 8-2 JV team this year. So they're going to have some young talent being called up. So some interesting developments happening there. Obviously, they're going to have some questions to answer because, like we said, they did just win those 4 games last year. They did make the playoffs, but so there are going to be some questions to answer if they hope to achieve the goals they have for this year. And we'll talk a little bit about those here in just a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's always good to have a completed JV schedule, much less go 8-2 at the Class 2A D2 level. That is significant for Cross Plains. One thing I'm looking at for them, they've got a good running back in Kai Schumann coming back with 822 yards and 15 scores from a year ago. They also have 3 offensive linemen that look like they potentially are going to be good ball players. Luke Henry, a senior, he's 6'1", 300. Lawson Brown, he's a junior, 6 foot, 240. Jesse Bradford, he's 5'10", 235. So they have some, and he's a senior. So they have some experience and some size up front. And these are, I mean, Cross Plains is a team that, wants to run the football. So that's a good start. They've got a quality running back. They've got some quality personnel up front, and that's where it all begins.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the biggest questions they've got, I think one thing that's going to be kind of a key to look at this year will be that quarterback position. Where last year, Landry Savell and Kai Schumann kind of split time behind center a little bit, and they kind of developed more of a power running identity, where that kind of became what they did. Obviously, with the loss of Tyler Mackey, who is a big time playmaker for them out of the backfield, they've made some changes to some skill positions where you're going to see Schumann be kind of that primary running back. And then Landry Saville, like I said, is going to be moving to that receiver position. So it's going to be interesting. That quarterback position will be one that will be definitely one to watch. Right now, a sophomore, William Albrecht, looks like he's going to be a guy to get a shot at that spot, which tells you that they must have some confidence in him if you're kind of penciling in a sophomore as a into that race. So that's a position I think to watch. If they can kind of solve that position, I think they've got some intriguing options at their other skill positions. You mentioned the offensive line; they've got some guys. Some experience at a lot of positions as well, so I think the offense could take a big step forward if they can kind of solve that quarterback position. And before we talk about the schedule, one final question facing the Cross Plains Buffaloes this year is just I'm interested to see kind of how big a step forward they can take in Coach Sanderson's second year. Like I said, Sanderson was a member of Coach Purvis's staff previously, but they did make some changes. They moved from that kind of I formation they'd always run to a pro split on the offense. They've become more of a power running team. They were running a little bit more spread stuff before Coach Purvis had left. So I think that this is going to be an opportunity for them to maybe dive deeper into the identity that kind of Coach Sanderson wants to kind of shape that team into. And I'm interested to see, with the experience they have back, when you talk about 12 returning Lettermen from a school Cross Plains size, which is still playing with Class 1A numbers. I think that's a good number. And you kind of touched on at the outset that JV. Yeah, Cross Plains is a Class 2A Division 2 team, but they are very, very small on that totem pole as well. So to have a full JV, to be able to complete a full JV season and go 8-2, I think is a really good sign for them. In the fact that they've probably got a pretty good wave of talent coming. So I'm just interested to see in year 2 with Coach Sanderson what kind of step forward they can take. I think they expect a better results. Obviously, their district is going to be perhaps a little tougher this year, and we'll talk a little about that schedule in just a second. But if they can take a step forward, I think they've got a chance to end their season in the playoffs again.
One of the things that is, to me, most fascinating about this team is running a pro split offense. You don't see that very often. At least under center, you don't see split backs all that often anymore, unless it's out of a wing tee or a slot tee. That's about the only time you really see it
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So that is interesting, to say the least.
And They ran the ball well last year. They kind of switched to that power running identity. They had 1,000 yard back in Mackey. Schumann had over 800 yards. So they had success running the football, and I'm interested to see with another year in that system, kind of what the progress looks like.
Okay, with that, it's about time to take a look at Cross Plains' schedule. But before we do that, we want to remind you folks who are enjoying these videos to please hit the subscribe button. It's free on YouTube. And then hit like and hit share. Won't you do that, please? We appreciate it. All right, and with that, Dan, it's time to take a look at Cross Plains' schedule for this season. Let's take a look at the non-district portion first. They'll open at home with Bruceville Eddy on August 28th. Then they hit the road for 2 straight weeks. They're going to Hico for a tough game with the Tigers on September 4th. And then they'll face the Bangs Dragons on the road on September 11th. Their final non-district game will be against Baird on September the 18th. After that, they jump right into district
Yeah.
without an open date.
Yeah, and before jumping to district, I just got to point out that the interesting deal about that Baird matchup. It's kind of following what Gordon did last year in scheduling two 11-man games. You've got a 6-man program scheduling an 11-man opponent, which is kind of a neat trend. It was interesting to
Yes.
watch Gordon do it last year, and Baird's going to try to do it this year. They do jump. Cross Plains jumps right into district, like you said, without an open date on September 25th with a home game against Hamlin, which will likely be a big one for them. And then they go on the road on October 2nd to take on Albany. They finally get their open date on the 9th of October before coming back on October 16th to host Stanford. They then travel to Goldthwaite on October 23rd, come back home to host Winters on October 30th, and then wrap up their schedule at Miles on November 6th. So on paper, that's a pretty tough schedule, top to bottom. That's going to be a really challenging one for this Cross Plains bunch.
All right, game of the year for Cross Plains, as you see it. What is the most important game of the season for the Buffs?
I frequently kind of cop out on these. I think I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say two, and it's it bookends the schedule. I think Hamlin in that district opener on the 25th of September, and then Miles on the road November 6th. I think those are almost must-win games because you look at that beefy middle part of that schedule where you've got Albany, Stanford, Goldthwaite. It's going to be real hard to find a win in that trio of games, which means you basically either have to win at least two of the other three, maybe all three of them. But I think that Hamlin and Miles are also going to be challenging for playoff spots as well. And that's what I was talking about earlier. This is just a really competitive district. It's going to be a really challenging one, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to follow.
I don't disagree with you. I will take, I mean, if I'm going to pick one of those two as uh, the most important, I'm going to take the Hamlin game on September 25th. That's going to be at home, and you got to hold serve in district. It's important. They're going to be facing the Pied Pipers on their home field, so they got to hold serve. They got to win that to give themselves a shot. And then those last two games, Winters and Miles,
Mhm.
those are must wins for them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I'd probably agree with you. If I had to pick one, I probably would say that Hamlin one because then after that you've got that Albany, Stanford, Goldthwaite stretch, which is going to be really, really tough. So
Well, I mean, you give yourself 5 chances to win that second game and really put yourself right there in contention
yeah.
for the playoff berth. If you win that Hamlin game, it does relieve some of the pressure.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. You don't want to start 0-4 in this district because then it puts you in really a back against the wall situation. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. That if I'm picking one game as the absolute game of the year for them, it is definitely that Hamlin game.
All right. And with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Cross Plains Buffaloes. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on August 19th, that is when we release our Big Country Preps preseason football preview. It's the most comprehensive look at area football by any media source in the Big Country, hands down.
And we also have mentioned in previous videos, but we'll do it again here, that we are adding 5 new schools to the mix to the Big Country Preps coverage area this year, and those are Mason, Stanton, Hamilton, Jacksboro, and Seymour. So be on the lookout for coverage on those 5. We're certainly excited to add them to our coverage area and to be covering this school year. In the meantime, we appreciate you watching this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series, and we hope you return tomorrow when we take a look at the Goldthwaite Eagles here at BigCountryPreps.com.